Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you've decided to watch this video. It's Mr. Jones from the Geography Department, and today I'm going to be talking you through the lesson Deforestation, Causes and Effects. You might have heard of the term deforestation before, you might not. In simple terms, it's the cutting down of trees, it's the removal of forested areas. We'll be looking at the lesson in two parts. We'll be looking at the causes, so why is the tropical rainforest being cut down, and the effects this has on the area and the people. So I'd like you to look at these images. These are three perfect examples of deforestation. Have a little look. What can you see? What does it show? Look at the stumps. What is the process of deforestation? What we're going to look at now is why is it starting to look like this. I'd like to activate some prior knowledge, and I would like you to draw a small mind map. It would take about half a page that just says causes of deforestation. Take 2 minutes, pause the video, and write down as many reasons as you can why we might be cutting down the Amazon rainforest. When you've got a few, please press resume on the video. Okay, so you should have had a go and had a look at different ideas you already know. I'm going to go through. You might have them down, you might not. So, one example that people seem to go straight to is the use of wood. We use it in school for our paper, we use it in our pencils, we use it for building, we use it for houses, we use it basically every day. We use it for furniture. So one example is we use it for wood. If you put wood, you can bring strands off it on different ways that we use that wood. Next, you'll be looking at some you might not have put down. For example, cattle ranching or cow farming. In Brazil, there's a huge industry behind cattle farming, which is rearing cattle mainly for the beef industry. Secondly, we have oil drilling. You might be familiar with oil drilling from our Antarctica work in Year 8. If they can find a source of oil underneath the forest gets cleared. We use oil continuously. It's one of our fossil fuels we use for energy. Another fossil fuel we use is coal, which is found under the ground, and that's why the mining industry can be another cause of deforestation. There are many different things that are mined. It could be different minerals, it could be coltan, which we'll look at in a bit later. Another example is to clear land for housing. You find this more in the temperate forests, and we're looking up more towards Europe and the UK. If there was a new housing estate coming in, they might have to clear an area of forest. So you should have a good understanding now of why we are cutting down these trees that are so important, that help us live, help us take in CO2 and help us breathe oxygen. As we remember from photosynthesis, if you were listening in science, where the process of trees breathing in the CO2 that we breathe out, and they breathe out oxygen for us to take in. So to understand the causes and the effects that we have in the tropical rainforest, you need to know the rainforest water cycle and the rainforest nutrient cycle. The water cycle is something we're familiar with, precipitation, which is also known as rainfall, condensation with the clouds, evaporation where it turns into water vapor and rises. And we've got the rainforest nutrient cycle, which you might not have heard of before. But nutrients is mainly part of the world where we are growing more plants and for small microbes, etc. So we're going to go through both of them today. Underneath this video, I've attached a PDF which will have that image and these annotations. The hydrological cycle. Hydrological is a more fancy word for water. In geography, we like to use the term hydrological cycle. On the right, we have our nutrient cycle. As you can see, we have 5 and 5 points on each. I'd like you to first have a go yourself, if you can work out what annotation goes in what box. If you are unable to print, if you could draw the same shape of a circle, maybe draw a small tree, draw where the ground is, and add them in the correct section. I will be going through this on the next slide, but I will give you an opportunity to try yourself. So if you want an opportunity to try yourself, please pause the video and then resume. If not, we're going to move on to the next slide. Okay, so now we have our annotations in place. At the top in our rainforest water cycle, we have heavy daily convectional rain. So we have a lot of rainfall. In our climate graphs, we would have identified that in areas like the Amazon rainforest, there's a high amount of rainfall. As the rain comes down, trees intercept the rain. Interception, I always refer to rugby. If you're passing to your mate and the other team runs and catches a ball in between, it's an intercept. It stops it. So you imagine the rain's coming down and the trees are quite wide and they're stopping the rain reach the ground. Some of the rain does reach the ground. Once it reaches the soil, it will start to go in, it will infiltrate into the soil, it will move down. And as you see in the image here, we've got our roots, which we have learnt that suck up the water and they take it into the trees. Some of the water will stay close to the ground in the lower canopy, some will get to the canopy itself, some will get to the emergence. As we know with the water cycle, any excess water evaporates, turns into a gas and will start to rise. That will then condense and make clouds, and we're back to our rainfall, and that's why we call it a cycle, because it goes round and round. So the relatively new one, the rainforest nutrient cycle. So trees, as you can see in autumn and different months, shed leaves all year round in the tropical rainforest. These leaves are shed, so they fall off the trees, and they begin to land on the ground. They then begin to decay, and they decompose rapidly. This could be through time or other microbes and insects that eat them and pass them on. Once the nutrients enter the soil, again, the shallow roots will take up these nutrients to help a tree grow. As we know, it needs sunlight, water, and nutrients. With this cycle continuing, the trees will begin to grow rapidly, and as they get to the canopy or emergence, they'll begin to shed their leaves. This is a yearly long process, and then again we have got a cycle that will go round and round. So this is the natural cycle of water and nutrients in the rainforest. Okay, I understand some of you won't be able to print this out, but you can just put in the middle deforested area. We're going to look at some of the effects. So first of all, we've got no leaves to create transpiration. Transpiration is the idea of where the water and the rainfall has been intercepted by the tree or the leaves, and then it will go back into the atmosphere and turn into clouds after condensation. So if there's no leaves to create transpiration, where's the water going to go? It's going to go quicker to the ground. This can create a lot of problems such as flooding. So we can flood the area. It can also make the soil very loose, which is then going to cause things like mudslides. So that's your answer to number one. Number two, no living roots to absorb the water. If they're all cleared from this land, you have no chance of trees regrowing. The soil is going to be more loose again because there's no roots to hold it in place, and this will lead to the same problem. You're going to get water stuck in the earth, which is going to make it soft, which is going to give it more opportunity for a mudslide or flooding. Similar to the point up here, no canopy to intercept rainfall. So that means the water is hitting the ground straight away. It will start to erode and it will start to destroy the soil and any small plantations that are trying to grow there. So the no canopy to intercept rainfall, the issue that's caused there is it will begin to destroy the soil, and again with the mudslides and the flooding, there's nothing to slow it down. So you might get flooded areas, erosion of the soil, and less opportunity for small plants to grow. This one here is slightly different. There's no leaves to fall onto the soil. So this will affect our nutrient cycle. If you look back a slide, we saw that leaves decomposing is essential to tree growth. If there are no leaves to fall, there's going to be less nutrients in the soil, therefore we are not going to get the same amount of trees, or we're not going to get regrowth. I would like you to pause the video. You can rewind to each point I talked through, and could you fill this in on your book or your notepad, please? When you're ready, resume the video. Okay, so you should have that all together. Now we're going to move on. So we've looked at some of the effects that deforestation has had on the area, and we've looked at some of the reasons why. What we are going to do now is a bit of a research task. We're going to be looking in more detail on why the area is being cut down and what is it being used for. We already understand now that this is a big issue. Okay? So our next task is going to be more based on you and the resources that we've got available. Below you should find a resource for coltan mining, cattle ranching, and oil drilling. The step you're in now is a planning for a written assessment task. We're going to be doing an information letter to the President of Brazil based on information we have gathered from the problems of people cutting down trees in the rainforest. So first of all, you can use your coltan mining resource. I've given you a hint on what you need to write. So what is it? What is coltan? What is it used for? Why is it useful? Next, why do we need it? Is it just to collect because it's shiny, or has it got a proper use? If you do look at the source, you will pick up different ideas coltan is used for, such as a good conductor, and we find it in a lot of our mobile phones. So that's the type of information that will go here. Coltan mining, again, the effects on people. We've looked at the environment, we've looked at the water cycle, we've looked at the nutrient cycle. What about people? The effects the deforestation can have on indigenous people. Indigenous people means the people who have lived there first, the people who are native to the land. If they live in the forest and we're cutting it back, what is that going to lead to? Are they going to have to move home? Is there going to be conflict between them and the builders? This is what goes in this section. And lastly, down here, I want effects on the environment. So this can be the water cycle, the nutrient cycle, and also please think of animals, think of insects, think of extinction of animals, think of habitats, so animals' homes, so habitats being destroyed. All this should fill in a mind map on coltan mining. I would like you then to do the same with cattle ranching, and then finally with oil drilling. You will need as much information as you can get. There's 3 resources available for you, but if you would like to do further research, that would be fantastic. It's just a Google away to find out the impacts that deforestation is having on the Amazon rainforest. You will need to have this data because we're then going to move on to the assessment, as I stated before. So please take your time on filling these mind maps out. And when you attend your next lesson or watch your next video, I'll be talking through how we're going to write this information task. So please have a go at all 3. The resources can be found underneath as in a PDF version. Please have a go at that. And any questions, ask me in the next lesson or try and contact me through Teams. Best of luck, and I will see you next lesson. Thank you very much.